What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? The NFL schedule has been released. The Chiefs are facing adversity in a really tough schedule in 2024, making their path to the three-peat a tough one. We will be breaking down the second half schedule. We'll tackle the home stretch and what the Chiefs' road to the playoffs look like headed into the 2024 playoffs. Welcome back to the Chiefs Uncovered on the Undroppables Network. I'm Grindberg, bringing you episode 13. So before we get going and cover the second half, let's do a quick recap of last week's show where we dove deep into the first half of the 2024 schedule. Chiefs and Ravens kick off the 2024 season at Arrowhead for the season opener. Then they will head and they will play the Cincinnati Bengals at home. Joe Burrow missed the last matchup in 2023 against PatrickMahomes, so I think they wanted to make that a nice schedule so that they could play it ahead of maybe one of these guys going down with injury. Game 3 at Falcons, primetime game Sunday night in September, then followed by a game against the Chargers on September 29th. It was an afternoon game, new head coach, new offensive scheme essentially, new weapons around Justin Herbert. So it'll be an interesting game to see how the Chargers line up in that division after the first 4 games. Game 5 is a home game, prime time against Monday Night Football. We got the Saints that week. Then week 6 is a bye, kind of a tough situation, a tough spot to really have a bye, in my opinion. You know, the Chiefs made a couple really deep runs in the playoffs, and now, you know, they're going to get their bye early. Not a good situation. When we look at the second half of this schedule, we will definitely dig deeper into that and take a look at what the Chiefs are going to have to do to three-peat. The first bit of the schedule, there were some tough challenges like we talked about a little bit with, you know, the Raider game. We'll talk a little bit more about that and the 49er back-to-backs. You know, they got a home game, they got a game at the 49ers after their bye, and then they got a game at the Raiders, which is another situation where they may be, staying on the West Coast during that time. It's going to be a situation that they're going to have to monitor depending on how they do against the 49ers. Game 8 is a home game against the Bucs on Monday Night Football. Then they're home against the Broncos in week 10. Crazy first half of the schedule. You know, there's some very winnable games there. I'm thinking the Chiefs, after these 8 games, are going to probably be 7-1 potentially. That would be my guess heading into this one, potentially losing a game there. Tough situation. Could be 7-1, 6-2. Really depends on those 2 games against the Raiders and 49ers. I could see a split on the first 2 games against the Bengals and the Ravens. But now let's, before we dig deep into the second half schedule, we're going to talk about the fantasy football schedule and how it never stops. Did you know you can already draft for the 2024 season on Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy football? The big board is a pre-draft fantasy football contest of all incoming rookies in the player pool. Draft your team in 20 rounds, and that's it. Best ball format, so you get the optimal score to fill your starting lineup. A great way to get your dynasty startup draft picks without any league management. Only $10 to enter and over $2 million in prizes up for grabs. Be sure to sign up for Underdog with promo code Undroppable, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. Now, Underdog's got a lot of promos going on right now. You're probably very busy with your best ball season. So if you haven't signed up yet, it's a really cool situation. You should really get into it. And obviously with these promos that are going on, you should definitely take advantage of the money that you're going to be matched up to there. The second half, now let's jump into it. I have the Chiefs pegged at 8-1, to start the year, heading into another stretch of games that are tough. The Bills the Bills is, in week 11. This matchup between the Chiefs and the Bills will take place in Buffalo. It will be a rematch of last year's divisional championship game. Oh, a lot of good memories happening, against the Bills, especially in the playoffs. This game will take place in Buffalo again since Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen have taken over as the starting quarterbacks for their respective teams. The Bills and Chiefs have faced off 7 times when taking into account the regular season and playoffs. The first matchup was in 2020 when the Chiefs defeated the Bills 26-17 in Buffalo. Later that season, the Chiefs went on to beat the Bills 38-24 in that AFC Championship game. I think we remember that one pretty vividly. That was the first season that Allen performed at the level we're used to seeing him now. In 2021, the Bills beat the Chiefs 38-20 in Kansas City on a Sunday night football game in the regular season. I repeat, regular season. We know that the Chiefs are undefeated against the Bills in the playoffs. So that the playoffs that year went into an instant classic game in overtime in the divisional round of the playoffs. That playoff game is likely the biggest missed opportunity the Bills had in recent memory, and that could have honestly probably changed their fortunes had they won that game. Who knows where they would be right now had the Bills won the Super Bowl that year. Crazy, crazy situation when you think about seconds left, how they blew that lead. Moving on to 2022, the Bills did beat the Chiefs again in the regular season, winning 24-20 in Kansas City. The two teams did not meet in the playoffs that year as Buffalo lost to the Cincinnati Bengals at home in the divisional round, and while the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl. Last season, the teams matched up twice, and once again, the Bills won the regular season matchup while the Chiefs won in the preseason. I remember that game last year in the regular season. If we remember that was when it was kind of a turning point in the season when there was so much adversity going up against our Chiefs. That was the game that Patrick Mahomes lost his cool, especially at the end of the game. I don't remember if you saw that handshake at the end of the game with Josh Allen and what was said between the two. That kind of was a definitely a turning point in our season. That along with the loss against the Raiders on Christmas Day, those two games really shaped the season. And I think the Bills game really made them think about how they were going to run their offense moving forward. They started using a lot more Isaiah Pacheco and getting RasheeRice involved into those games, and that changed the stretch and the just the way the season ended. Okay, and then obviously we're talking about that Raider game as being one that really shook the Chiefs, and that was the last game they ended up losing in 2023. The Bills have beaten the Chiefs, just not in the playoffs. This time, the regular season matchup will be once again in Buffalo. While not much will matter for the Bills fans, the team overcomes the Chiefs in the playoffs. That's what they're going to be looking for. It will be interesting to see what comes this time. The Chiefs, of course, are the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. They have foundational players like your Patrick Mahomes, your TravisKelce's, and Chris Jones on defense. They are set to contend for a long, long time, and we've talked about that numerous times on this show. They will also have a couple of additions on the offense. We talked about Marquise Brown a lot on this show, XavierWorthy. They're going to boost our wide receiver room and make them a formidable force moving forward. The Bills saw a lot of depletion this offseason. Several players, especially on the defensive side, are gone, and some of the biggest names on their team on the offensive side of the ball are now gone. Stephon Diggs, who was their star wide receiver for several years, helped Josh Allen break out as a star in this league. Buffalo will look at a different, very different in comparison than what Kansas City will look like. Kansas City will look more of the same, but Buffalo will be very, very different. Regardless of their matchups, they're going to look and they're going to play each other hard. The Bills, they're going to have a brand new offensive scheme. They're going to be more run heavy, in my opinion. They're going to be more conducive of what was happening at the end of 2023 when they got their new offensive coordinator, and they changed the way they ran the ball. And James Cook, Isaiah Davis, those guys are going to come in and command some playing time. And I think the target shares are going to go down in that offense. Keon Coleman is a guy that could step into a role there. So a lot of variables there in the Buffalo offense. And by that game, you would think they would have it put together, and the Chiefs will probably have a good idea of what the Bills are going to be looking for and how they're going to be able to compete against us. Dalton Kincaid is another player that is worth looking at. I think he's going to have a season where he's going to have, his fair share of targets. He's going to bounce into a leading role on that team with, the departure of Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. So yes, the Bills, they're going to come in fighting. It's a home game. They're going to be hungry to beat our Chiefs. They're not going to look probably as formidable as they have in the past based off of what their team took on this offseason, but we can't discount them. And that's a part of the season where the Chiefs are going to really need to scrounge out some of these hard-fought victories. Now, game 11 for the Chiefs is another, after a tough trap game against the Bills, they will head into a trap game versus the Panthers. And they'll likely have a very different look headed into 2024. Looks like they are surrounding the second-year quarterback, Bryce Young, with some better weapons. They revamped their O-line. Jonathan Brooks was drafted in the draft as a high draft pick, the first running back off the board. They made a big splash in free agency, bringing in Deontay Johnson, who should be a safety valve for the young quarterback. So things may be looking up for the Panthers this year, but it'll be a tough tread against our Chiefs, knowing, after a Bills game that, could go either way. They could be looking pretty hungry, or they could be looking banged up and bruised. So this could be a game that is a trap game for the Chiefs. I don't foresee them losing it, but it could be a lot closer than people think it is. I got the Chiefs beating the Bills. I got the Chiefs beating the Panthers. Now, they go on and they have a game against the Las Vegas Raiders, and taking down the defending back-to-back champions will obviously be one of the Silver and Black's biggest goals this season, especially since Kansas City and us are their hated rivals. We'd be foolish to bet against the Chiefs at this stage of the game, but, the Raiders have a very, very good defense. They are top-notch. They bring in a guy like Brock Bowers to make a 1-2 punch at their tight end spot. You got Devontae Adams, who's looking solid. Their running back room could have some variables there, but Zamir White took on a very good role at the end of 2023, and he's looking to be a spark plug for the Raiders. And we know what happened on Christmas Day last year, where the Raiders went in and they shut down our Chiefs, and they showed us that they were there to play ball. And I think that could be, another tough game that we're going to have to play against. Max Crosby gets pressure, and, those two, Mahomes and Crosby, they always have epic battles. So I'm looking at this game to be a very, very close game, another hot-fought game, but I think the Chiefs take on this one because this is their home game against the Raiders. So taking them down at home, avenging their Christmas Day loss will be a very good situation. So our Chiefs are coming off of this second half, and they're having a really good, strong start in my prediction. Then they got a home game against the Chargers, and by, week 13, 14, the Chargers should have some sort of identity, you would think. After 3 straight years of having to play the Chiefs at home in either the middle or the end of the season, the Chargers will welcome their rivals at SoFi Stadium in week 4. So that is going to be a situation. That's their first game. They're going to have some time to get accustomed to their new team and get a feel for each other. The Chargers will want to put an end to the Chiefs' run at 8 straight AFC Championship titles, West titles. The best way to do that is find a way to score early, and playing the Chiefs at a later part of the season in Kansas City might be a tough one for, a passing attack. But this Charger team could look very different than it has in the past with, Harbaugh as their new head coach. We saw what he did in Michigan, and they're more of a run heavy, defensive minded team. And I could just see this Charger team, laying the groundwork down with their running back room and leaning on some of this defense that they're trying to build up. So this could be a closer game, but I just don't see the Chargers making a match for our Chiefs at home in the later part of the year. So we'll have to see about that. But now is when the schedule really becomes fun, and it really is where the Chiefs could have been using that bye at this stage. It would have been ideal before going through this 3-game gauntlet that consists of games versus the Browns, the Texans, and a road game on Christmas against what is a bruising team on the Steelers and in Pittsburgh. These are 3 games that are going to be very, very hard fought games. They're going to be physical games, and they're going to be games that are going to, probably have a lot on the line still. All these teams are going to be probably right in the thick of the playoff hunt, thick of their division, and it's going to be a wild one, and that's going to start in Cleveland. One of the more anticipated home games for the 2024 Cleveland Browns will come in Week 15 as they host the Chiefs. The Browns defense will have their hands full with Mahomes and Kelce and their new receiving core. The Chiefs also retained all their major players, so this game will be a war to the very end. The Browns have a weak offensive line, and I think that the Chiefs can exploit that. It's going to be a tough one because this is a later game in the year. It's in Cleveland, and we know how the weather can be very temperamental. This game will be a war and a very hard-fought game in the trenches like they always are against the Browns in Cleveland. I can actually see the Chiefs losing this game. The Browns have a good team, and they've been good for a couple years no matter whom is at quarterback. And if, Deshaun Watson is coming back and can be a manager, the Browns have a really good shot. They have Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, and Devonta Foreman as a formidable 1-2-3 punch in the backfield. I know that Nick Chubb is recovering from his injury, his knee injury. That was a gruesome one that took him, out of 2023 early. Jerome Ford came in and was very, very admirable in replacing him. They bring in another guy, very similar way of running in Devonta Foreman. So they are looking to run the ball, control those clocks. And they have brought in, Jerry Jeudy, former first-round pick of the Denver Broncos. Amari Cooper, we know how he runs, and he's been very, successful with no matter whom throws him the ball. And then Jamari Thrash could be a guy, a sleeper guy that could make his way into the lineup, especially if Jeudy does decide to, take some plays off early in the season. That might bode well with the coaching staff. So, David Njoku, another solid, top-performing tight end. These Browns are going to be a team that's going to be a tough team to beat at this stage of the game. And I think the Chiefs are just going to have to take one on the chin here, preserve some energy, get some strength to get into their next game, which is home against the Houston Texans, who is looking to build off of their 2023 season, who saw that team go to the AFC divisional round game, and they lost, obviously, in that game. They have CJ Stroud. They have Will Anderson at defensive end. They spent a lot of money this offseason to make marquee trades to upgrade for their young quarterback. They brought in Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon to bolster their offense, and they also extended Nico Collins, and they are investing in him, and he should be their alpha number 1 wide receiver. This team could be lethal headed into 2024. This squad has Super Bowl aspirations, and they'll need to get through their schedule first and then get into this game, which I think a lot of people have circled on their calendar. When the Texans face the Chiefs, they will also be in the middle of one of their toughest stretches of the season, and they could also be beat up. They'll play 3 consecutive games against teams that have won 11 or more games the last season. Houston will need every bit of health and energy to take on the Dolphins, the Ravens, and then the Chiefs. While a 10-day span is brutal, the Texans will be rested for the Dolphins, but they will only have 5 days to recover and play our Mahomes and our Chiefs during a wintertime game in Kansas City. Those odds don't really stack up very well, in my opinion, for a team that is relying at this stage of the game for a big pass-heavy offense. And with a quarterback that doesn't run a whole lot, I think this game is one that the Chiefs should be able to go in to Arrowhead and win. I'm not saying comfortably, but this is a game that I think they're going to be, looking to get back after, potentially losing to the Browns the week before. And then they head into Christmas Day, and then they get another bruiser. Our Chiefs will finish their tough stretch before, hopefully at this stage, looking ahead to the playoffs. The Steelers will also be coming off a tough part of their schedule, and they will face the Chiefs on Christmas Day. An AFC North battle will ensure that week 16, when the Steelers take on the Ravens on Baltimore, so they're going to be coming off a game from, the Ravens, and then they're going to be a quick turnaround against our Chiefs, and that's going to be a tough one, but they are at home. They're going to be a new look team. They've upgraded a large amount at quarterback, bringing in Russell Wilson. Justin Fields could see some snaps and potentially a wildcat formation. You never know at that stage. This is a game, 16. This could be, a field show by that point, for all we know. They got George Pickens, Roman Wilson coming in as the heir to Deontay Johnson's vacated target. So with Pat Freiermuth back fully healthy, the Steelers could look a lot differently headed into this year, and they're still a 500 team, and they could turn some heads. So I'm thinking that our Chiefs lose this game and head into their final game of the season versus the Denver Broncos at Mile High. This could have some underlining tones if the Broncos can have a successful season. They could be playing for a playoff spot. Wait a minute. No, I'm just joking, guys. There's no way the Broncos are going to be in this game, and hopefully our Chiefs are at a stage of their season where they're going to be able to rest some guys. Hopefully this is a nothing game for all parties, and the Chiefs are coasting at this stage, headed into the playoffs with a 14-3 record, I'm hoping, and home field advantage throughout would be awesome. But it's a tough schedule, a tough division, and there's a lot of variables happening here. There's a lot of tough teams in the AFC, as we know, but they're Chiefs. They are playoff performers, so hopefully we can get a schedule in the playoffs that looks good for us. Granted, we make it there. So awesome. That is the recap for the schedule for the 2024 season for our Chiefs. That is awesome. We've covered a lot this offseason with our Chiefs, and I can't believe this is already episode 13 of the Chiefs Uncovered. Huge shout out to everyone who's been tuning in weekly. Myself and all the Undroppables appreciate the support. This show is thriving. We have y'all to thank. You will be able to find this show in all the Uncovered series on the Undroppables Network. We have a bunch of teams going right now, and we are bringing team-specific content nonstop. The Undroppables are also looking for anchors for such NFL team-specific content shows. So if you love your team and you're a diehard and you want to be a part of this elite team, it's our turf, your content, their game. Let's go. Remember to like and to subscribe to our channels and follow me on X at FFCanuck. That's it for today. We'll be back next time for the Chiefs Uncovered on the Undroppables Network. I'm Grindberg. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.